We were in a fertility clinic when I was laying in a hospital bed in one of the gowns, and it was our fifth IUI procedure. And there was just something that broke in me that day. And I started to cry. It turned into that hard to catch my breath type of crying. And I looked over at my husband, and he looked up from his fishing magazine. And instead of comforting me and like jumping on the bed with me and holding me, he shushed me. He just said, Steph, like, be quiet. People are going to hear you in the waiting room. And it was devastating, right? I mean, I couldn't believe I married a man like this.
Real women, real marriages. This is the Empowered Wife podcast. Stephanie married the man who felt like her adventure soulmate, camping in the mountains, fishing in the rivers, and chasing freedom together. But when infertility hit, something changed. Stephanie was heartbroken, but she kept the pain to herself because deep down, she was terrified that if her husband saw her struggling, he might not love what he saw. Between fertility treatments, twins, sleepless nights, and years of resentment, their marriage turned icy. And then one night at a restaurant, he said the words that shattered her heart. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Stephanie tried everything to win him back, but the harder she tried, the worse things got until one tiny experiment changed the dance. What did she do differently and what made her irresistible to him again? Stephanie's going to tell you. Stay till the end for your Try It Tonight takeaway. Stephanie, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm super excited to have you here.
Yay, Laura, thank you so much. I feel like I finally made it to the party. Like, here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Oh, I cannot wait to hear the whole story, but let's start from the very beginning. What attracted you to your husband?
Ooh, so juicy. Well, like so many great love stories, we met in a bar, you know? I was in college, and I remember I was playing pool with my girlfriends, and I just heard somebody's voice, this deep voice, and turned around, and I saw this man. And I remember everything. I remember what we're wearing. He was wearing this black t-shirt with a lizard on it, like an Oregon Coast Aquarium t-shirt, and he just had these huge shoulders, and he just looked larger than life to me. I was attracted to him like that. And yeah, you know that moment, Laura, where you make eye contact with somebody and you can look away. Like, I could have gone back to my pool game, but we just kept the connection there, and we fell in love. We met in that bar. We couldn't, I remember I was even wearing this red J. Crew skirt. Like, I remember all those little details, but we just became inseparable. And that summer we were in Denver, and it was like this summer of love. It was epic. We would go out on Friday nights and go back to his place after the bar or the party or whatever it was. And I remember just throwing a frozen pizza in the oven, and we would get all of our camping stuff together. And, when that pizza was done and it was out of the oven, I'd wrap it in tinfoil, and we would just go to the mountains together. We would just point it straight for the mountains, and gosh, it was just so cool. It was so magical. Hiking 14ers together, and, floating on rivers that I had never even heard of. He had a drift boat, so he taught me to fly fish, and he taught me, to shoot guns, and how to set up a camp kitchen, and, all this stuff. We just really, we were adventure soulmates, and he was the first person that I introduced to my parents, the first boyfriend. And he was the first man I ever fell in love with. So it's pretty incredible.
And it sounds like you guys were like fellow adventurers. He took you on these 14-mile hikes and these camping trips and taught you all
Mhm.
these exciting things. I mean, it sounds like a rush getting to do all those things with him. And yeah, great romantic story of how you met your husband and
Mhm.
fell in love. So then you decide to get married.
Yeah. Yes, we decided to get married. We were together for about 5 years, and we were long distance at a certain point. He had gotten a job, and I mean, I graduated school and I was kind of like, if I move down there, you better put a ring on it. And so, there was a little bit of that going on, but after we got married, we had a beautiful ceremony. I really wanted to start a family, and that was my goal. So that led into kind of where the disconnect started. After this epic couple years of adventuring together and having so much fun, and feeling really laid back, things turned serious pretty quickly because I was really focused on starting a family, and we ran into fertility issues. And so this was challenging, and it's kind of like, dang, the one thing that you really want, like, if this could happen, then I'll be happy. If I can get pregnant, like, then everything will fall into place. And it was a long journey. So it was really challenging. Yeah.
Well, that is pretty heartbreaking if you're passionate about becoming a mom, it sounds like, and it
Mhm.
wasn't coming easily. That can
Right.
definitely put a lot of stress on a marriage. I mean, what kinds of things were coming up for you in that fertility journey?
Well, again, just focusing on what I couldn't have, and just everything else fell by the wayside, and I was focused on this one thing. And really, I mean, the disconnect, I remember again exactly where I was. We were in a fertility clinic when I was laying in a hospital bed in one of the gowns, and it was our fifth IUI procedure. And, I was stimulated at the time, so I was on hormone medication, and it was, gosh, it was just exhausting. It was exhausting. I was just cooked, emotionally, mentally, physically. And the procedure itself, we're in our private room. I'm in that hospital bed. My husband's within arm's length of me. And the doctor comes in and does a very quick procedure. And what they do is they tip your feet so it goes up in the air and your head's back. They're trying to use gravity, everything to get you pregnant, right? So the procedure's done. They tip my feet up in the air. And there was just something that broke in me that day. And I, like felt like a hostage in that situation. You're supposed to stay tipped like that for 20 minutes. And finally, I had stopped moving. I was still, and just all those emotions came flooding into me. And I started to cry. And like some people may know, like when you start to cry, and it turned into that hard to catch my breath type of crying, And I looked over at my husband, and he looked up from his fishing magazine, and instead of comforting me and, like, jumping on the bed with me and holding me, he shushed me. He just said, "Steph, like, be quiet. People are gonna hear you in the waiting room." And it was devastating, right? I mean, I couldn't believe I married a man like this. He wouldn't support me, he wouldn't be there for me, and he had no idea too. Like, I'd been doing everything. Like, I found the doctor, I set up the appointments. And when I looked at him, I thought, man, yeah, I married Peter Pan. He's never going to grow up. He's not equipped. And it was just heartbreaking. And I knew like he wasn't going to help me calm down. So I looked at my brown smart wool socks that I was wearing, and I just counted the stripes on my socks, like the blue, orange, tan stripes. I can see it right now. Just counted them over and over and over again so I could catch my breath. And by the time the doctor came back in after that 20 minutes, he leveled out the bed, and I got dressed, and my husband, sped off in his truck, and I got in my Subaru and I checked into a hotel room. I was so upset, and I didn't want to see him. And all the doubt flooded in, why did I marry this person? We're never going to have a family. And wouldn't you know, 2 weeks later, we were pregnant.
Oh
That was the
my
time, right?
oh my
At fifth round.
Oh,
So, yeah.
no. It's such an awful moment. It's
Mhm,
such a heartbreaking moment.
mhm,
Yeah, why did I marry him? I'm never gonna have a family. Hmm.
mhm.
But then you were pregnant and so you spent the night in a hotel room, and what happened? You just went back the next day or
I
or
spent, 2 days at the hotel, and I just I knew at a certain point I calmed down, and I got to pull up my own bootstraps, right, Laura? So I just walked back into the house and I just wanted to figure out my best next step. And I thought maybe that was leaving my husband. I really questioned it. I really did. I thought about, what we had in the past and where we were that day. And I just kept thinking to myself, how did we get here? How did we get here? So lost along the way. And I felt really like a shell of the woman that I once was. So it was challenging. It was 2 weeks of a Cold War. We weren't talking, but then I took that pregnancy test and found out we were pregnant. And I was really happy. I was really excited, and I told my husband and we had this honeymoon period that, man, like we did it. And it's almost like I tricked myself into self-care. I didn't know what any of this stuff was, but during my pregnancy, I had a great job. I owned a coffee trailer, so I would be up at 5 in the morning and dead at 2 p.m. and, take a nap every day. And I was doing it for our kids, right? Like I'm carrying this baby. At the time, I thought it was just one. And, I was just doing everything to make sure that we had a safe, healthy pregnancy. So taking a nap in the afternoon, taking the dogs for a walk, cooking a yummy, nutritious dinner, and things were calm, but there were still big pieces that were missing. Like during that whole fertility journey, Laura, like our intimacy went missing. It was gone. The whole, by the time doing that fifth insemination round, like we were not, the doctor would make a funny joke, like, you two go have fun. You're ovulating, crack a bottle of champagne and like, go have fun. And we were so far, everything had become so mechanical and transactional and just chilly, at that point. And during my pregnancy, the intimacy didn't come back. There was more peace, but the intimacy didn't come back. And um, yeah, it was a tricky time to navigate.
Yeah. I get it though. I mean, everything was so focused on the goal. We've got to conceive. We've got to conceive. And it
Yeah.
kind of robbed the joy out of
Mm.
physical intimacy, it sounds like.
Yeah. And just that disconnect, I think during that fertility journey, like I said, I was really, you need to be here at this time. You need to be showing up. You need to do this. And here's the hotel room we're going to stay at. And it was, it was, I was dictating everything. It really was. And I felt justified in it too. To be honest, I felt
Course.
justified because I'm going after what I want. And my husband, he did show up. He did show up. Maybe not in the way I wanted him to, but yeah, you know.
Yeah. You okay.
And
And that makes so much sense. Of course, you're justified. Yeah, you're trying to conceive. Like you've got this goal. Yeah, you're going after what you want. There's no part of you that probably even realized that this could be hurting your relationship with him.
right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So, but yeah, and then you inadvertently, you just kind of naturally start doing self care during the pregnancy. So, and your relationship was back to a honeymoon stage, except for not the physical
the
intimacy
intimacy.
part, but
Yeah,
the
maybe that was a stretch, the honeymoon phase, but it
oh,
felt calm. I guess I'll say, right? Like okay, that was a stretch, but it did. It felt calm. It felt, less tense, less anxious. So that was,
yeah,
created a nice atmosphere. And then when the kids did come, we found out we were having twins along the way. And again, we were just excited. We hit the jackpot. And when the twins came, all of the peace that was created during that pregnancy, that calmness just went right out the window, just right out the window, because I went right into being regimented as a parent now. I was trying to figure it out and, um, the nursing schedule, the feeding, the sleeping, all of that. And it really took over again. Yeah, front and center. Um,
yeah. And I mean, your you hit the jackpot, but the parent to kid ratio is kind of messed up, right? When you have twins, there's like two of them and two of you. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is a little more stressful, right? It probably does require more. Um, I mean, regimented is like you're trying to cope with
Yeah.
it, having two.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair way of putting it. I was trying to cope. I was doing, the best I could. And I didn't know a different way to do it. And I mean, and it was tricky, Laura, because we had some good times in there too. There was like these ups and downs with our marriage, but there were times I just didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know how to, you know, take off the martyr cape. And that was really challenging. It cost me a lot, and there were times that I remember one of the first nights I got consecutively 5 hours of sleep, something like that, and my husband had done a late night feeding for these babes, right? And I came out in the morning, and the sun was coming out, and, all I could see on the couch were the, bottles that my husband had used. They were squished into the cushions, and I just thought to myself, "I could have done that so much better." Like, I would have put them in the sanitizer. Like, he knew to do that. And it's just like that type of resentment. I couldn't see, the good in all of it, that he had worked so hard so I could get that sleep. I just saw that he was doing another thing wrong, you know? And it just,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I totally get it though. It is, yeah, it's hard to be, and yeah, you knew to sanitize the bottles. He knew to sanitize the bottles. And that's an important part of being a mom, is keeping your kids safe. So yeah, it's understandable. You were looking at, yeah, instead of seeing like he did that late night feeding for me and I got to sleep, yay. It was like, okay, but he forgot to do this. So there was
yeah.
some critical, you were in kind of a critical place, with the way he was showing up, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to look back
Understandable.
on that. Yeah. It's hard to look back on that and just, it's all those moments that add up, and just being able to see things differently now. But yeah, I mean, it just led into, me doing a lot. Like, I just went into overdrive of parenting and taking care of the house, and, um, I really felt like things just weren't coming back together. I thought, yeah, I'm gonna blow everyone's mind right now, like, having our kids did not save our marriage. It actually put a microscope on, the issues there. But it was it was a year after the kids were born. My mother-in-law was so generous. She came up and was like, "I'll watch the kids, and you 2 can go on a date." And I thought, "Great, like, an opportunity to connect." And we were gonna go out to dinner and a movie. And we sat down at a Chinese restaurant, and I, put my fork on my husband's plate and asked if I could have a bite of his chicken lo mein, right? Or what I think it was chicken lo mein. And he said yes, and I tried to make a flirty joke. I was like, "Yeah, of course you'll give me a bite. You're so in love with me." And he looked at me and just said, "I am not in love with you. I love you, but I am not in love with you." And right, it was that face. My jaw dropped. And this was the first time, like, I always felt so confident that he loved me so much and he was in love with me, and we were, couldn't keep our hands off of each other. But that was the past, and right in that moment, it was just another heart-shattering moment, and it was like a Hallmark movie, Laura. I got up out of the restaurant, stormed off, went outside. It's December in Colorado. It starts snowing. I don't have the keys to the car. I'm sitting on a parking curb, and I just waited there thinking, of course he's gonna come out and get me. Of course he's gonna come out and, like, save me and tell me it's gonna be okay. And I'll tell you what, my butt got real cold on that parking curb. I just waited out there and he never came. And once again, it was like walking back into my house after staying at a hotel. Once again, I had to walk back into that restaurant with my tail between my legs, and just like suck it up. It's what it felt like. I didn't know if there was anything else I could do, So we we finished up dinner, we went to that movie. I just remember like crying into the popcorn and not showing, like hiding my emotions and just feeling again like I'm so stuck in this, you know? Yeah.
Oh, it sounds crushing. And so heartless. I mean, people would call that verbal abuse to say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. I mean, it's heartbreaking. So,
Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah,
Yeah.
so sad.
It was, yeah. And I think it might have been just the next day, I just vowed to myself, you know, I'm going to make this man fall back in love with me. I'm a stubborn woman. I know I can, I was just like, I'm going to do better and I'm going to earn his love and I'm going to show like my worth. And I just, again, pressed the gas. Like the lights had to be green. I just had to keep pushing through it. And then, something will give and he'll fall back in love with me. And it was just exhausting. I mean, I would cook 2 different dinners, one for the kids and then one for us so we could have quality time together and, just I was just all over him. If he, his tread was looking thin on his hiking boots, I would just order a new pair for him and just have them right next to the old ones. Like, gold star for me, I'm doing everything right, and the doctor's appointments and the dentist and just everything I could think of. I wanted to please him, and then maybe he'd be grateful for me. And it just, it wasn't, it wasn't working. And it also just was not sustainable, the way that I was in overdrive there. And it was another year later after our kid's second birthday. I'd gotten the cupcakes with the pink and blue frosting and the little crowns with the number 2 on their heads and just got all, got the pictures. And I remember I had cleaned everything up, wiped off the counters. Our friends had gone, the kids were asleep. I'm sitting on my bed. You know that moment where you're just like, finally, I've made it. I've made it through this. And my husband came in and was just like, you are so miserable. Do you want a divorce? Will that make you happy? Yeah. And I was just thinking to myself, what else can I possibly do in this moment? I've done everything and it was a full year of like stepping up and doing more. And unskilled stuff, I was just like, well, do you want a divorce? And he just told me I would never do that to our kids. I don't want to do that to our kids. So the stories, Laura, that I had in my head were, he's not equipped, he's Peter Pan, he's never going to grow up. And that he wasn't in love with me and he was only staying for the kids. And the intimacy still wasn't back in our marriage. It'd just been chilly, like scraping the inside of the window panes of your house kind of chilly, like just just rough. And that was, I think, the time that I started Googling, I started looking around, listening to books on Audible and just trying to get a bunch of information. It took me a little bit longer to find you, but it was challenging because everything I read was like, okay, he's from Mars and we have different love languages and he's a firstborn and I'm a lastborn. And my mindset, again, was just like, okay, this gives me all the evidence why we don't work. This just proves the point. Like, this is why we don't work because we can't, we have different ways of showing love and we're
It's
not
never gonna get
compatible.
better. It's all
That's what it felt
hopeless.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot
Oof.
of it, it was really easy when I was reading this with would point the finger at him. Um, but yeah, it was just yeah, felt long and hard.
Yeah. It does sound hard, and you are not looking for a divorce. You're also not wanting to do this to your kids, it sounds like. Is that was keeping you there?
I think part of it was I didn't want a divorce, but I really just didn't wanna fail either. I didn't wanna fail at this. And there was maybe that, being 51% in because I could see what we had in the past was so magical. It was so incredible. And I just thought, I kept scratching my head like, how did we get here? How can we get back to where we were? And so there was a big part of that. I remember even going there were some dark times there, Laura. I mean, I remember going for walks when my husband was on a he was at a bachelor party, and I remember walking around with my dogs and, probably the kids in the double stroller, and I would think to myself, like, "What if he did cheat on me? And then I wouldn't have to be the bad guy getting out of this marriage," you know? Because that's what it felt like. If I were to, initiate a divorce, like, I'm the bad guy who's ripping my family apart. Like, if there was some way I could blame him, then I wouldn't be at fault. So I didn't wanna be the one responsible for getting a divorce, for putting that ball in motion.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
oh
okay.
yeah.
Oh, heavy, heavy, hard, painful.
Right?
And and he'd already said, "I would never do that." So it's like, it is on you if you're gonna but you're in so much pain. Like, what are your options at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get the strategy of like, if he cheats, then I won't be the bad guy.
Yeah.
So, but
I mean, that's how
yeah.
desperate my thinking was, you know? It was desperate, and it just felt like another hostage situation where I'm just like, "I am so stuck. What do I do here?" You know? And, yeah, it was interesting, talking to one of my girlfriends. She was usually the girlfriend that we would vent about our husbands together, and she was the one who recommended The Empowered Wife to me. She, she said, "I think this one's worth listening to. Keep an open mind." And I trusted her, And so I remember listening to your voice come through as I'm walking my dogs again, around the same loop 25 times in one weekend. And oh, Laura, there were so many cringing moments. There were so many moments of just feeling really busted for my part in a lot of this, and a lot of just being seen though and heard and knowing that my problems, my issues, like I wasn't on an island, that there were other people that could relate to this. It felt really validating, to just have somebody it felt like a warm hug at some point too. Um, Again, just not feeling alone was huge. It felt like, finally I had somebody in my corner, and it was nice listening to the book too because I could experiment with a tool. I could do something and be proactive, rather than just more information of, "Here's why you don't work," you know? So I had an opportunity very quickly to use a skill, to use a tool, and I remember we're at our kitchen, and the kids were clipped into the kitchen island, their little red high chairs, and my husband came over to me, and he looked exasperated already, and he was just like, "Okay, what are we doing for the holidays this year? Are we going to your parents' house for Thanksgiving? Are we spending Christmas with my family? Are we hosting? What are we doing for the kid's birthday? Because it's right in between those two." And it was like he was asking the cruise director what we're gonna be doing, right? Because I was a social chair. I made all the plans. And I remember I was so nervous. I remember I probably closed my eyes, but I just said under my breath, "Whatever you think." And he looked at me suspiciously, like, "Eh?" And he turned to leave, and bam, he walked right into our sliding glass door. Yeah, and he was alright, but, like, this was a big I don't know what surprised him more, like, the door or my response, but, like, something was shifting here. And, he shook it off and he went outside. He was probably thinking, like, "What alien has invaded my wife's body?" You know? And, I just remember, going back and cutting up the grapes for my kids and just kinda smiling to myself. It felt so good to do something different, And I realized letting go of the holiday plans, whatever he chose, I really, you know, I didn't really mind whatever we were gonna do. It just felt so good to not have that burden on me, you know? So That was a big shift. That was the first thing I did was use the cheat phrases. Hmm.
I love that story. I love that he walked into the door. He was so surprised and suspicious and thought you'd been
Hmm.
abducted by aliens. Because it really, you make it sound easy, but it actually takes a lot of courage to say whatever you think when that is not what you're used to. So this was a brave thing that you said.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly right. It was felt really scary and I think so vulnerable too to switch that up and letting go of something. I think part of me too, I was such a overfunctioner. I was so used to having everything on my plate, and letting that go, it kind of felt like I'm changing my identity at some places too, in some parts of this, because you know, I was the one who would take care of everything. And if I'm not taking care of everything, who am I at this point? So it was really challenging. I really appreciate you saying like that was scary. That's a big deal to change that up. So yeah, it's exactly how I felt. Hmm.
Yeah, and, you were taking on so much, right? You were making those doctor's appointments and ordering the new boots and all the things for him and for you and, of course, for your kids. So I really appreciate you saying it was like an identity change because this is not who Stephanie is. Stephanie just tells everybody, "This is where we're going for the holidays, and I've already booked it, and and here's, and this is what time we have to be ready."
Hmm.
And so this was like free falling to say whatever you think.
That's exactly what it felt like. Free falling and, trusting the process. Not really, a little bit. I just it's like but the thing that I loved that you encouraged so much was like, just experiment with it. If I said whatever you think, I was like, I've got the safety net for the fall, that I could change my mind. It was a matter of being brave, experimenting, because at this point, Laura, I didn't have much to lose, you know? So it felt really exciting to do something again, just different. Here's the well-worn path and just taking a pause and being like, I'm going to try out this one, you
Going
know?
there. Yeah, let's see what's in
Right?
that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he end up making the plans or I mean, did you really let go of all the holiday and birthday plans, that time of year stuff?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, yeah, I did. He decided that I think at that point that we were going to go, it was 2017 when I read the book. And we were gonna go to his parents' house for Thanksgiving, we were gonna spend Christmas at home and, just do the kid's birthday at home, and, he'd check in with me. He was not used to this, me changing the dance. He'd be like, "We're good?" Like, we're you know, like, if we and because I mean, one of his big complaints for me was that I would just erupt, I would explode at times, and so he was very tentative. I think about changing the dance. I we say it all the time in this community, but I think about being at somebody's wedding on a dance floor and literally I'm changing the dance and I'm spilling my drink and I'm bumping into the speaker and I'm stepping on my husband's feet, right? That's me trying to figure this out. And then the poor guy, he's trying to keep up with me, you know? So like this was all very new and very different and for my journey, I had the book for years. I had the book for years before I really invested in coaching. Because again, I was very stubborn, but I really thought I could do it myself. And I had so much evidence of changing things around, being able to use duct tape. And my husband, I mean, we just didn't talk to each other for it felt like years, just that chilliness in our marriage because I was always so helpful and able to fix things, that he stopped talking to me for a while. He didn't want to share his dreams, his disasters, his day with me. And, just being able to put on some duct tape, he started to come closer to me. He started to talk to me more. And that skill was challenging. I feel like I'm telling on myself a lot here. I didn't love the idea of duct tape. I called it doormatting at a certain point. I was just like, what is this? And when I really embraced it, it wasn't, at first, it felt like I was using it to avoid conflict, you know? And the other side of it was I had no idea how much I was putting my thoughts, my fixing, my all of my stuff onto my husband, and I wasn't listening to him. I would listen to him just so I could respond, and I wasn't hearing him, you know? So just changing that up and him being able to talk to me was such a game changer, you
Wow.
know?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's, again, more free falling, right? Like you are not a doormat. That is not your
No.
style. That is not your identity. Uh,
No.
so the
No.
idea of just like not saying what's coming to mind with that duct tape, I get how what a big change that is. Like, and in some ways, I mean, I actually love that you called it doormatting, right? Because that's how it felt. But you were willing to do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I had nothing to lose, and this was something it really was interesting too, being that overfunctioner, it was something I was doing less, you know? One thing that, like, I didn't have to go off and fix everything, you know? It was just sitting back and just listening for a bit. And man, the things my husband started to tell me were, I mean, it was just so connecting. It was so nice to talk to my friend again, you know?
Oh, your
And,
friend
like,
was
there was
back.
times yeah, I mean, there was the roommate vibe going on, but when you go long enough in a marriage without intimacy, without talking, without just laughing together, you feel like strangers at a certain point, and that's so painful, you
So painful.
know?
It's lonely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it feels rejecting. And so
right.
you wearing duct tape brought it back, brought the friendship back.
Yeah, I felt like the friendship was coming back, like, there was more connection, there was more peace. But Laura, I kept hitting roadblocks. I did. I just kept hitting roadblocks. It was so frustrating. And I wish I had a more epic story to tell you about like what the actual surrendering moment was. But it was all around a road trip. My husband had stayed home because he was working, and I had taken our kids up to visit my family in Wyoming. And like, it turns into a 14-hour drive. I had the dogs and the kids, and so I left, at 4 in the morning to make the trip up there and, spent 2 weeks up there, and I was not getting myself care. I was not, asking for help or anyway, it was still challenging at the time to do that, but, I just remember coming home and feeling like, "Okay, we'll get back to our routine. It's gonna be good." And we had 1 hour to go on this road trip. And, we're coming in hot, and I called my husband and was like, "Okay, we're almost there. We're an hour out." And Laura, he said, "Okay, well, we don't have any food in the house, so you need to stop and pick something up for dinner." And I hung up on him, and I was like, "This is probable cause. Like, I can go murder him right now. He deserves it." You know? I was
Be
so
acquitted. Yes.
oh my yeah, I'd be yes, thank you. Like a jury of my peers would acquit me, no problem.
Yes. A
Um,
jury of your peers would definitely acquit you.
yes, but, I just was so angry. I was so mad, and I you know, like, how hard was it for him to pick up, again, just like frozen pizzas and a Caesar salad packet? That's all we wanted. That's all I wanted, you know? And so he came in the driveway and I picked up, I ran into a grocery store and picked something up. And I think I threw it at him like a frisbee. Like got out of the truck and was just like, here, and he got the kids out of the car and I stormed into the house. And it was again, I just looked around the house and was vibrating with resentment, like a resentment rash just spreading everywhere. I looked at the counters and there was coffee grinds all by the coffee maker, and dishes in the sink and laundry in the laundry room and stuff on the floor. And, we had left 2 weeks before and I looked in our kids' room and their beds, everything was just exactly the same from when we had left, like the beds weren't made, their clothes were on the floor. And I just thought I was angry. I thought, like, how much lower do I have to put my expectations? I want to choose a connection, but like this is unacceptable, that feeling. And gosh, I just started rage vacuuming. Yeah, like very very dignified, right? I'm just going to avoid everything and I'll rage vacuum and I'll just get everything back to where it should be. And my husband finally came in and Laura, he just pulled the cord for the vacuum out of the wall and he looked at me and he was just like, "You are such a bee." And he said it in kind of that dark, rumbly, low voice. And we've never been much of name callers. This took me really aback. And I had this moment. It was even more frustrating because I had the skills and I couldn't access them. You know what I mean? Like I saw red. There was no other color in the rainbow. Like it was red. And I I like was dumbfounded and he left with the kids. I think they went out to dinner somewhere. They got out of there. And then I was just stuck again with my behavior, with like just feeling so resentful. And I, oh, it was just, again, that feeling of being discouraged and frustrated and, not getting closer to the connection that I wanted. And I felt like, again, all that progress that I was making just got wiped out from underneath me. And it was interesting because something very similar happened the year before with the same exact road trip, and I had all this evidence that I was finding, some success with the skills, but I needed help. I needed more accountability. I needed to get out of my own way. And that was the part, when I was stuck by myself at home, holding a vacuum, crying, that God, I was just so sick of it. And that's when I had been thinking about becoming a coach. I had been looking at the relationship coach training and I had a discovery call. I signed up for one. And this was my second go at a discovery call because the first one I thought, okay, I'm just going to practice a little bit harder with the skills and then I'll then I'll have it. Then I'll be a pro. And this time I don't even think I finished the intake questions from the coach, interviewing me and asking me all these questions. I didn't even finish it. I was like, here's my credit card. Like, I'm so done. I just need to help me help myself, like, help. And I remember passing over my credit card, going through the process. And then after being like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? What did I just do? And it was pretty incredible. I'd had the skills at 4 years at that point, and I started coach certification like 2 weeks later. I was one of the last people to make it into this class. And it was, again, just such a relief. It was like hearing your voice. The first time I listened to the audible of The Empowered Wife, the first time in this class with these other women, I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? You know, just that feeling of connected, related to, supported, encouraged, and people that, just gave me a lot of grace at the same time that I wasn't giving myself, you
Hmm.
know?
Whoa. Oh, that's a great resolution to the story. I mean, of you sobbing with the vacuum in your hand and feeling so hopeless again after you knew a few things what to do, but you couldn't always access the skills. And same, same. And so yeah, I love that you gave yourself all that support. And it seemed in a way another scary act, right? This is another super scary thing. It's a big investment to
Mhm.
decide to train to come into relationship coach certification. And afterwards you were like, what did I do? Like you were feeling that there was like a little hangover from it.
Yeah, yeah. I just invested big time. But I still had that feeling, from this situation coming home with my husband. My thoughts were just like, he's been on vacation for 2 weeks. well, I've been in the trenches with our kids, and I just knew there was a way to think about this differently. I knew there was a way to make this better. And I think that whole, first couple years of using the skills, I was really focused on how I could win him back, how I could make him fall back in love with me, how I could use the skills for him. And it was that first session of being in coach training where it was just like, what's your vision? How do you want to show up? That was the piece that I was missing, to really figure out like I can be in control of myself. And that's the one person I can change. And I just, it was flipping things around like, yes, I want change, but I want to change. I don't want to be stuck in this pattern anymore. And it was just, gosh, it was just so empowering and just such a relief. It's such a relief to be around these women. And things really, I made some big moves that year in coach training. I really did. I got in touch with, wanting to have the playful, fun, passionate marriage. But I also wanted to show up. Like there were times with my kids, I wanted to be that relaxed mom. I wanted to be calm with them. There were so many, just that anger would come out sideways for me. And I would, like do the upper arm pinch on my kids. And I mean, I think I threw like a water bottle like this across my kitchen and dented my stainless steel dishwasher, you know? Like that type of anger would come out and it's still dented. I'd love to get a new dishwasher. Um, but like it just, like I was so sick of it. And so getting in touch with that vision, I remember around the holidays too, which is a busy time. I'm also a ski instructor. Like this, historically was a really challenging time for me. I'd be busy at work. We have all the kids' birthday and the holidays, and my husband would make the plans for that. But I did this thing where I would buy all the Christmas presents. I would do everything. And, felt like it was all hanging on my shoulders. And I was getting a ton of coaching at the time. And they just kept asking, what's getting in the way of your vision of being this relaxed mom and being, a connected wife, a present wife. And I knew for me, a big part of that was I was numbing myself out too. I had a coping mechanism of drinking alcohol, and I knew that was a big part of it too. And, Laura, for years, I would do like a sober October or a, sober November or give drinking up for a while just to make sure I could do it. But there would always be, I'd just go right back into drinking. And this time it just became the coaching for me made it very clear that this was a big part of what was getting in my way, you know, this drinking. And instead of giving up drinking for a month, I was just like, I'll trick myself a little bit. I'll do this challenge for 100 days. And um, it's been over 4.5 years now of abstaining from alcohol. Thank you. It feels so good to say that out loud. There's like a lot of shame. There's a lot of stuff that comes with that, but just to make it so clear that my vision's right here and this is in the way and just make a choice, and it became like that. I can't do this anymore and have my vision. And, you know, it was interesting. My confidence really grew from that. It was a little shaky for a while because I was like, who am I without drinking those beers? Like that's fun stuff. And I realized, I didn't need that to be the fun wife, to be the fun just woman that I've always been, that adventurous girl. And I felt like I was really gaining momentum with that. And it was, I remember when my husband really did come closer to me when he really leaned in. It was, I felt like the intimacy things were starting to shift around. And I remember it was COVID, and we were going to like a bonfire ice skating party. And they were in the truck, they were waiting in the driveway for me to, come out and join them. And I was in my green snow pants, my black puffy coat. And I was looking at my phone at this meme, this like Dukes of Hazzard meme. I remember it. And I was laughing so hard. I was running late. I was laughing so hard at this thing on my phone. And my husband came in and looked at me and was about to be like, come on, let's go. And he just started laughing because I was laughing, and we were both just, feeding off each other's energy and laughing so hard. I was crying at one point. I was laughing so hard. And it was just so sweet, right? So connecting. Who knew that laughter was like the shortcut to connection or to intimacy? But I just remember he put his hand on my lower back. He put his hand on my lower back and he put his chin on my shoulder. And he did it. It's just like the movies. Like he, nuzzled my hair to the side and he kissed my neck. And I could feel like the weight of him leaning into me. And it had been so long to just feel that. And honestly, there was a point too, where I was like, I'm not sure if I'm in love with him. Am I attracted to him still? Am I there? Like, if intimacy does come back, am I ready for this? And I just melted. I just melted into my muck boots and into him. And we were just one right there, like at the kitchen island. And I just knew, like, I knew it was all coming back. I knew it was worth waiting for. I knew it was worth, getting in touch with myself again, connecting back to me. And gosh, things just really took off from there, that moment. Um,
And I just love that story. It's like, oh, it slays me. It just melts me that, you know, yeah, he like nuzzled your hair and kissed your neck. And and you knew he was in love with you. He was in love with you again. Like, this is the answer to that Chinese restaurant when he's saying, I'm not in love with you, and your butt got cold on the curb. Like,
right.
here you are. Like, it's such a triumph. It's you got it all back. Got
Yeah.
it all back. Like, what a great moment.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was incredible. And that was, that was part of the vision. I wanted to be connected with him and I wanted to have that type of fun and flirty energy too. And that, things progressed from there. For me, it was just a lot of these steps. And it took a while, that intimacy, that moment, it's on a pedestal still for me because it was just so incredible. But it was, maybe 6 months later, I remember um, my son was with my mother-in-law and I was painting my daughter's room and we were doing it together. My daughter was about 7, so this is a big undertaking, painting her room together. I never could have done it I never would have attempted this without the skills of getting the self-care, of having more patience and, choosing this connection with my daughter. She chose this color, Raspberry Crush. It's not forgiving at all, It's like really intense, but I was going for it. And I remember, even checking in with myself during the day and being like, okay, honey, like, let's take a little break. You can go make lunch, when I started to feel like my shoulders going up to my ears. And she's so cute. She came back with Pop Tarts and potato chips and the peanut butter and jelly sandwich and, total kids' lunch. And we finished up for the day. And my husband came home. He's a fly fishing guide. So he'd gotten off the river and he was washing down his boat. And we went out and greeted him. He had his girls giving him a hug and playing with the hose and we're having a good time. And my husband just looked at me and I had paint on my arms and stuff. And he just said, what do you need right now? And again, just melted. I just said, yeah, I could really use a shower and maybe just 10 minutes of doing yoga. And said, okay. And, I played with my daughter and got her some snacks and set her up in the TV room. And so I'd taken that shower and I was doing yoga. And we have these big windows um, outside our bedroom that look into the front yard. And my husband was out there. He'd gotten himself a cocktail and was walking around. And he started mimicking me. he put his drink down and he started doing like downward dog and mimicking me and trying to put his feet in the air and stuff. And we were laughing. And I don't know what inspired me here, but I was having a girl of fun and light moment and I just flashed him. It was like Cancun, like spring break Cancun. And so I flashed him and was laughing so hard. And he just ran right into the house. And I was like, oh, and that was a moment. He whisked me away and we walked in, the walk-in closet and just had that moment. Like that was the time that he couldn't keep his hands off me. Again, we were right back there. And it was so fun. Like that girl, I for so long had felt like a shell of the woman that I was. This fun, playful, like ready to go anywhere type of girl. And I missed her, Laura. She was super fun. I also, like, and I felt that again. And just my husband, gosh, yeah, magnetic, very magnetic.
Yeah. Talk about feeling desired, feeling
Yeah,
irresistible.
right?
Yeah, feeling
Gosh,
magnetic and feeling
yeah.
adored.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved the tagline, cherished, loved, and adored. And I never thought about it even before, like the being pursued and desired, all these feminine words. Like, I want all of that, and getting in touch with that vision. It's been so incredible. Absolutely want to be desired and adored. And I feel that. I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so electric. That's such a great story. I love that story
Yeah.
of and it's clear, like, yeah, you were playful. You'd been painting Raspberry Crush, but yeah, but you were also, like, totally taking good care of Stephanie, doing those yoga
Yeah.
poses, and
Uh-huh.
this guy saying, "What do you need right now?" Like, this is the same guy that said, "Shush, the people in the waiting room are gonna hear you," right? So this is
Yeah.
like he seems like a different guy.
Yeah. He does. He does seem like a different guy. But I still, I think about it and I married a great guy. There's parts of that journey that I look back on now and, you know, I give myself a lot of grace. But, when he was in that fertility clinic with me, Laura, like I hadn't told him everything that I was going through. I didn't share with him how exhausted and depleted and emotional I was. I kept everything bottled up. I just stuffed all of that and I didn't tell him. And my husband, he's a good guy. He would never want me to suffer. And I kept it all in, and even when he asked me, do you want a divorce? Will that make you happy? He was trying to find a way to make me happy. Like I believe that. I do. He doesn't want me to suffer. He feels successful when I'm happy. And he was willing to put that on the line. Like, if that's what you need, we'll do it. You know, that's
Make
how I
you
see it
happy.
now. Yeah.
Wow. Not at the time,
Mhm.
but in retrospect,
In retrospect, I mean,
knowing
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, he just wanted you to be
Mhm.
happy. Wow. And so it sounds like he was feeling more successful with being able to make you happy. And thus the "what do you need right now?" question
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
resulted in this great, like, passion, physical intimacy,
Yeah.
flirty, desiring, magnetic moment.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I absolutely love that. So now the passion is back.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, and you're feeling more like good time Stephanie too, like that girl that you missed that was always up for a good time and an
Mhm.
adventure. So
Yeah.
that's feeling good too. And
Yeah.
yeah, so okay, so I love this. And the skills are just kind of more accessible to you, it sounds like, even in rough
Mhm.
moments. Like
Yeah.
did you take that trip to Wyoming by yourself again after that?
Um, I have done trips by myself. The past 2 times, though, my husband's come with me. The past 2 times, my husband has made it work, and he's been able to come with me. And I
Interesting.
also yeah, I mean, I also when I am, traveling, when I'm doing things differently, I think for a long time traveling, I was scared to travel. I didn't like to, because I would get out of my routine. I'd feel very out of control and I didn't know what's going to happen with my self-care. Like, how do I make this all work? how do I fit it all in? And, you know, yeah, so being able to go somewhere else and have the confidence to say, this is what I need, this is what I would love to do, and put it out there. To really, like, it's real important that I put my oxygen mask on first. For so long, I was just, we joke around pouring from an empty cup, and I'd be like, challenge accepted. I can do that. I can pour from an empty cup. I'm running on fumes. It's fine. But like, I had no idea that what it was costing me and how prickly I was showing up. My goodness. I just lived in porcupine mode. And like I was so used to it, they were probably bedazzled and like had scrunchies on them and stuff, just porcupine stuff, and I didn't want to do that. I needed to, in order to relinquish control, really get into my feminine flow with it and learn to receive and get the self-care and, you know, make myself a priority. It's really important. And it was counterintuitive. So it was, fighting some guilt and all the old sayings like self-care is selfish and pushing past all that to know that this is the greater good. And man, it feels good to show up with a smile instead of like, you know, RBF or something, like a bad, um, it's so funny too. My dentist had been on my case for years about fixing my bite. And I was just, let's get another night guard. It's fine. It's fine. I don't want to get braces. That was his suggestion. And finally, I started smiling so much more. I was like, if I got braces, could you fix this tooth that hangs down a little lower, like this little snaggle tooth? And he was like, yeah, we could definitely fix that. So I wound up getting braces to improve my smile because I realized, I'm smiling a lot more and want it to shine. Just
And you
little
have a
things like that.
beautiful smile. You really do
Oh,
have a beautiful
thank you.
smile.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. It's true.
Well, that was great receiving, Stephanie.
I've been trained well.
I love that. I love that. You just and you can receive compliments so with so much confidence now. I love that.
Yeah.
And I do hear that as kind of a theme of your story too, is that you became more confident after you started becoming more skilled.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting off the fence was one thing, but my confidence in myself too. Um, just it feels so much better just in my skin, looking in the mirror, like that was part of it. When I first got into the skills and before, I didn't love that woman looking in the mirror. And the second time getting into the skills, I really started to do it for myself and recognizing like it's gotta be my first great love is the person looking in the mirror. That's where that's where it starts. And if I'm having negative thoughts or, you know, it's really big to be able to flip those around and be gentle with myself. Man, I wouldn't talk to myself the way I talk to a stranger, you know? And so just again, the grace and being gentle. And there was a lot of forgiveness for things that I did in the past. And, you know, just accepting where I am now, but that forgiveness was big. It doesn't change what happened in the past, but it sure does change right now and the future and the way I'm showing up, you know? So,
Totally. I love that. I
yeah,
love that. It sounds like you have a lot more compassion for yourself and
yeah.
empathy for what you went through too. So, what is your marriage like now?
Oh, Laura, I don't even know where to start. I'm like looking out my window right now and there's an iguana like climbing up a tree. We're normally in Colorado at this time and I'd be looking at snow. And right now we are down in Costa Rica. We've been down here for 3 months and I'm on this epic adventure with my family. My husband earned a sabbatical from work, 3 months paid leave. And he was actually eligible for this. It's been about a year. And when he first told me about it, Laura, I was like, well, have fun fishing in Alaska or like whatever you want to go do. I didn't, I was like, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. And what do you want to do? And he just kept telling me, whatever I do, I want to do it with you guys. I want you to come with me. And I mean, that flip from, it felt like for years he was just trying to escape. you know? And now he didn't wanna go anywhere without us. So December 1st, we sent it south to Costa Rica, and we've been I mean, he isn't working down here. I'm the one that's working. I have my successful small business, as a Laura Doyle coach, and he's supported me in every single way possible. I mean, he gave me this little pipa drink right before the call because he knew I
Oh,
was nervous. It was, a little coconut drink.
so
And
cute.
it's so cute. And he just, when I go for that run first thing in the morning and I come home, he's the one making the fresh squeezed orange juice with our kids. And, what he's checking in with me. When are your calls today? What do you need? And I'm like receiving so much, Laura, I want to hide under the table sometimes. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's just, and it's not that things are always perfect, I mean, things come up. Like we were driving the other day and we got a flat tire on the top of a mountain pass and it's 100 degrees out and I'm calling we have full coverage on the rental. So I'm calling the rental company and my husband's changing the tire and he turns it into a lesson for our kids who are 11 years old. You know, he's just that type of incredible dad and we're rolling with the punches and, we make it back down and it's instead of getting into a funk, we just reroute, we just are able to rebound very quickly from stuff. And, it's all these moments that make up the magic, these micro moments. We were just laying on the beach yesterday and I'm laying down on the beach like this and my husband's on his elbows, on his stomach. We are kind of perpendicular together and we're watching our kids surf and, he was just stacking seashells on my stomach, like seashell Jenga. You know what I mean? Just like so silly and the sand's like running off my hip and I'm wearing a two-piece and it felt so sexy. It felt so fun, like that type of intimacy. And it's so innocent. But Laura, we're on a beach with like all these newlyweds and, honeymooners down there. And I'm like, we fit right in 21 years in, you know? Right? I mean, it's so dreamy. It's so
That is
dreamy.
so dreamy. That is awesome. That is what everybody wants, right? And I think
Yeah.
it's what you think is going to happen when you get married. It's like that's your vision. And you're
Mhm.
living it. And I give you all the credit for creating that
Thanks.
beautiful vision. And I love what you said about like I'm receiving so much. It makes me want to hide under the table, like because it's still uncomfortable. It sounds like, right? Like even when he brought you the little coconut drink with the straw in it, like
Yeah.
this is taking something for you to be able to receive all the ways he wants to treat you and spoil you. And then but the result is he's playing Jenga seashell edition on your belly at the
Yeah.
beach like honeymooners. This is the
Yeah.
honeymoon.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Wow.
been It's been quite the journey, and it's all those moments like I'm not missing anything these days, you know? I'm really not, and it feels yeah, it just feels really satisfying, to have done the hard work, and now it's just doing the brave part and really enjoying it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, let's talk about that. Like, is it hard work to does it feel like hard work? Any of this?
Nowadays, no, it doesn't. It doesn't feel like hard work. I mean, my marriage, it's like you said, where I didn't believe you. I mean, Laura, you should see my first edition of The Empowered Wife. I've thrown it a few times. There's literally duct tape on it. Um, but I mean, I feel like I'm doing less now and receiving more. And just that saying that I'm loved for who I am and not what I do. Just keeping that in my back pocket is so important because I know my value. I know my worth. And in the battle days, it was kind of like, gosh, I got him those hiking shoes and he didn't even, give me gratitude or appreciation for it. And I was just constantly looking for validation, and through what we were talking about of just me finding my own confidence, my value, my worth, and knowing that and owning it, like I am the whole cake. and everything else is the sprinkles on top. I'm no longer like chasing that validation from anybody else. I know I've got it. And it's so interesting how like I hear more and more from my husband, these acknowledgments for me and just gratitude for how I show up as a mom in situations, that are good and challenging. He does. He talks to me more and he shows me the love these days. It's yeah, it's pretty nice. Pretty nice.
It's nice. It's nice. It sounds really nice. And what about your kids? Like, how do you think this has impacted them?
Oh goodness. Our kids, they are gosh, they're funny. They're 11 now, so they see us and my husband, my son he'll just say, "Ah," like when we kiss each other or something like that, he's like, "Oh, mom and dad are at it again." If that's my biggest flex or that my kids are a little grossed out here and there, we're doing good. Because man, we used to just scream over that kitchen island, just those battle days. And now they're seeing something really different. They're just seeing two people who are in love, who are happy with each other, who accept each other. We still are our own people, but we really do accept each other. And, my, yeah, my daughter, she's on board. She loves it. She, um, she loves, we have our wedding china is toucans. And so my husband picked it out. I don't know, but it's toucans. And for some reason on this trip, she's gotten it into her head, she wants to buy everything toucans for us to celebrate us, I don't know how this all happened, but it's become a theme for my husband and daughter. They go out and they bought him a shirt with toucans. I have salad tongs that are toucans now, and a picture of toucans, and it just feels all celebrating our love and togetherness and, just, just fun. Just, there's a lot to celebrate, and there are moments too where for so long, I didn't trust my husband with the parenting. I really, when he just has a different way of parenting, and I didn't want to accept that. And, we've had some really amazing moments on this trip of just going fishing with our family. And my son caught this giant mahi, Laura, like this big and 50 pounds, like a big guy. And it was a, 30-minute battle to bring him into the boat. And it was so exciting. And then, this whole other part of catching the fish too, where it's hooked and brought into the boat. And, there's blood on the white deck and the fish is harvested. And that was the first time my son has encountered that. And so he was excited. And then we're sitting on the bow of the boat, and my son and I are drinking some water, and he got emotional. He was crying. And, I was hugging him, and my husband came over and was just incredible with him. He just held my son and just said, "Bud, you just have the biggest heart, and you just respect this fish so much," and he just gave him the biggest hug. It was just the sweetest thing. And I thought, gosh, I'm so glad I have these skills. I'm so glad that I trust him now, because these are the moments that I would have gotten in the way of in the past. I really would have. And that was a moment we all got to be together and hug and, celebrate my son, but it was really connecting, just to trust him. He is the best father for our kids, you know,
That is
absolutely.
so moving. That is, yeah, such a sweet story. Like, what a great family moment. This is like the essential pain of life. Like,
Hmm.
his grief about that fish. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, recognized for his big heart. It sounds, yeah, it's a super moving story. Like, who doesn't want a family life like yours, Stephanie?
Hmm. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. It's beautiful. So, and so you're, I mean, I feel like you're the pinnacle. You're on the top of the mountain. you're 3 months in Costa Rica, like, just really getting to enjoy, and you are a very successful relationship coach now, and you save a lot of marriages, I mean, and this is sustainable, like, this is your life now. Here you are, we're celebrating. I mean, this is a victory laugh, right? When you come on the
Yeah.
podcast and
Mhm.
we get to say yay about it. And so, but what if you were, talking to a woman who is where you were, who,
Mhm.
her husband says, I'm not in love with you, and, shushes you when you're sobbing, with your feet in the stirrups, high in the air, and who says you are such a bee, and she wants what you have now, this closeness, this playfulness, the coconut drink, to be receiving so much that you want
Yeah.
to get under the table, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel squishy inside. And to be this role model for your kids, where you're grossing out your son and your daughter is buying your wedding china to
Right.
celebrate. She's with her dad. So she wants what you have, but she's where you were and it doesn't seem possible. So
Yeah.
what's your best tip for her? What should she do?
Oh, well, first I would just give her a huge hug and tell her she's not alone. And I would just I would tell her, you gotta connect back to yourself before you can connect to anybody else. And that there's a great book she can read. It's a great book. There's a whole community of coaches just waiting for her, to want change, to make the change. And yeah, just really being gentle with herself and kind and knowing that she is worthy of, investing in herself and getting the help, that she doesn't have to do it on her own. But that was the big piece for me. The first time using the skills, it was about him. And the second time, my second big go around was making that shift of being able to make this, like you say, the biggest self improvement project and doing it for myself. And it was all about, connecting back to myself first so that I could show up as the woman that I want to be. And everything just seemed to fall into place after that. You know, that was the that was the big changing point for me.
Yeah. I know it must feel so good to be the woman that you want to be. It sounds like that's your superpower.
Aw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, to be your own magic wand woman, right? Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
Exhilarating. Yeah.
Exhilarating. And there's
Yeah.
always something coming up, right? There's always another vision I want to reach. There's always something more. So we'll see where it takes me next.
Of course. Yeah. Your desires are probably bigger and better than ever because you're starting from this place of being so self-possessed and honoring yourself.
Mhm.
So yeah, you end up in Costa Rica for 3 months, right? Out of that. So,
Yeah.
um, and what would you say to yourself if you could go back in time and tell Stephanie what
Mhm.
you know now? What would you say to her?
Oh man. I think I'd probably break all the rules and give her a crystal ball and I would just show her, right? Picture's worth 1,000 words. I would show her where I am right now and the love that I have between, me and my husband and the connection in my family. And I would just tell her that all of this is coming and there's a way to do it differently and it's going to happen. She's got to hang in there. You know, I'd tell her that and I would tell her, take this crystal ball and keep it in your back pocket and keep looking at it, to keep that motivation going. But there are times I think about it and I really do think I found the skills and went through this journey the way I had to, you know, um, so I could get to where I am today. You know, it's an inside job and I had to go my own path and it's paid off.
Yeah, the way you had to. This is so it almost sounds like you're grateful for the whole thing.
I am grateful for the whole thing. I am. Now I can say that. There were times, yes, of throwing the book, of kicking a hole in my daughter's door. There were times of so much frustration. But it was, it's not just learning these tools, it was unlearning a lot of what was just baked into me, you know? The stuff that we've talked about of, I would love, like that's trained out of you as a kid a lot of the times. And so, you know, unlearning a lot of the patterns that I had and giving myself grace and loving myself through that process, it took me it took me time. It wasn't an overnight deal. And I think that's probably why, it's like I want the cheat phrases. I want to use like what what are the things I want the cliff notes for the skills. I was so eager to do it and trying, I was kind of taking some shortcuts to get there. And that's why I was hitting those roadblocks. So just going back and really scanning my side of the street and looking in the mirror and figuring out like, what do I need to unpack here? How can I you know, again, look at that well-worn path and choose a different one. And it is coaching, retraining our brains. You know, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And being a coach, like you're steeped in this kind of conversation
Hmm.
a lot more days than not, probably.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. How do you think that impacts your marriage?
Um, Very positively. It does. I mean, that was kind of part of it, because I just felt this calling, I wanted to become a coach. And I also read over and over again, this is, take the deepest dive into learning these skills. And that's what I wanted. I wanted the deep dive into these skills. And so practicing them every day, like there's practicing them, and then there's a point where you have a shift and just embodying them, and as a coach and being accountable every single day, it's again, just I'm living with it. It's part of my life now. These times in Costa Rica, we've had amazing adventures. We've also had some tricky situations, coming back from a beach one night and I'm walking along, I'm using my phone as a flashlight and start walking on something crunchy and I think it's maybe ice from someone's cooler and Laura all of a sudden it's glass and we walk up to the car and there was a rock that was thrown through one of the windows in our car and all of our stuff was stolen, you know? And my husband right away jumped up into protective mode and he's looking around and making sure we're safe. And there was just that moment. My kids were so scared. They're so scared. And their little backpacks were stolen with their like national parks passes, like their patches on their bags and all that stuff. And it felt really the difference with embodying the skills, like I could just stand there and hug them and know that this is just stuff. We're okay. Like it's really inconvenient, but just to know I'm so grateful we're okay. It doesn't matter. And when my husband was done, like making sure we were safe, he just came over and joined us. And we were just this four-pack hugging, knowing that we were going to be okay, and that's living the skills. That's embodying this. It's not, there are times I definitely need to drop and do 10 gratitudes, but like I'm a grateful woman these days. And it's really easy when I'm in that energy to have my priorities in check. We can replace the stuff. Like right now, Laura, I'm on my computer or on my phone. I don't have my computer, because all that was stolen. But like it's just stuff, you know? And all of it will be remedied, but like it just doesn't matter. My priorities are in check and I'm grateful for what we have, you
So
know?
this same woman that, rage vacuumed, like, gets her stuff stolen and ends up in a group hug, a family hug.
That's a great split screen. Yes. Thank you for that. I mean, and those are the times too with being able to duct tape or pause, take a deep breath and being able to be logical in those situations. It's just stuff. My kids are right here. I can comfort them. I can show up as that lighthouse we always talk about. I don't need to go searching around and saving and fixing everything. I can stand there and I can hug my kids. And my husband, I'm not chasing him. He's coming to me. and I can be that steady hand in our relationship. Yeah.
So it sounds like another superpower, like just to be able to emotionally regulate, because you're talking about your kids were scared, but I mean, like I would be scared too. I'd be scared, like, oh my gosh, my computer was stolen. Like, what am I going to do? What does this mean for, like, I don't hear your own freak out going on in that moment. I just hear the lighthouse. I hear you being the
Yeah.
lighthouse. Is
Yeah.
that, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it was very clear in the moment too, like, what can I actually control in this situation? You know, I can control how I show up for myself, but for my kids too, for my family. They were scared. And because I get the self care, because I'm, taking care and, you know, living this life, living with gratitude, being able to give the information to my husband when I'm scared or whatever's coming up. I have reserves in the bank that I can show up and hug those kids, make sure they know that they are safe. And that's all that mattered, And like I said, the rest of it, honestly, Laura, it's inconvenient, you know?
Wow. Wow. You sound like a great mom, Stephanie. Amazing mom.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Has your husband ever said anything or done anything that, like, to acknowledge this transformation that you've had?
He, um, he does say little things here and there. He does. Just the other day, we were talking about, our neighbor. Her husband is out of town and her kids were sick and she was sick and we were bringing her apple juice and like leaving little things by the gate of her house. And he just said, this transition of him being home base for our kids right now, as much as we're both here, but I'm working, he's just like, I never knew how hard it was on you, when the kids are sick and I would be away because he traveled a lot for work. He still does. He was just, and it's not apologizing, but it's just recognition, you know, just little things like that where he'll just say it and that's the sprinkles on the cake, right? And that night, after that break-in incident, the rock through the window, I mean, he went and filled out all the police reports and I went back to a hotel because we were road tripping at the time. And he came in, and, it was midnight and he just held me and he just said, I'm so grateful. You're such a great mom. You really held it together tonight. And he notices that stuff and he tells me, you know, and it felt so good. Out of all the situations, there's the gold, you know? Yeah.
Well, it's amazing, Stephanie. And your story is just so riveting. It's so entertaining. It's so relatable and so inspiring. I want to congratulate you and give you the Best Wife Award. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yes!
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally deserve this.
Aw.
You have been so brave and so committed, so consistent and determined in like, yeah, loving yourself, becoming your best self. Like, see, looking like you said, like seeing that woman in the mirror, that girl of fun and light that you used to
Yeah.
be, bringing her back, and just making your whole family so wonderful, so like enviable,
Oh.
like the kind of family I think like everybody wants. And I just want to congratulate you because I think it's a huge accomplishment, and I don't know that there's a whole bunch of recognition for this kind of thing in the world, and so it's just my pleasure to get to celebrate with you all that you've done.
Oh, Laura, thank you so much. I'm just like air hugging you right now and receiving that. And yeah, I mean, gosh, I wouldn't be here without you, without this book, without this community. And I'm just forever grateful. I really am.
Well, me too. I'm so grateful that we found each other, and then we get to be on this road together, on this journey,
Mhm.
like for the rest of our lives. It just it lifts me up.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Mm.
Stephanie.
You're welcome.
All right, adorables. Here's your try it tonight takeaway. It's to find your girl of fun and light. Now, Stephanie's story is such a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest transformation in a marriage happens when a woman reconnects with herself. For years, Stephanie was exhausted and she was resentful and trying to fix everything herself, make everything work. But when she started focusing on her own self-care and bringing back her girl of fun and light, the playful, adventurous woman her husband first fell in love with, everything started to change. She started laughing and she was relaxed and she was feeling like herself again. Stephanie was giggling at a silly meme on her phone, laughing so hard she was crying. And did you hear what happened? Her husband walked in and he saw her crying tears of joy and he started laughing with her. And later, that playful energy even led to one of those magnetic moments where her husband couldn't keep his hands off of her. So here's tonight's experiment. Do one thing that makes you feel happy for frivolous fun, something that fills you up and maybe even makes you giddy. Maybe it's watching a comedy or playing with your kids or your dog or watching silly videos of somebody else's kids or dogs. Maybe it's heading out to dinner with your girlfriends or giggling on the phone with your sister. What can you do tonight to bring out your inner girl of fun and light? And if you want some ideas and encouragement for finding your girl of fun and light again, come join the Adored Wife group with me and my coaches and thousands of women who think that having a great marriage is important at adoredwife.com. That's where we reveal the tips and the tricks and the traps to avoid when you're trying to fill yourself up with self-care and rediscovering your girl of fun and light. Now, this might take some courage to do, but if you're feeling brave, you can experiment with this tonight. So are you ready to try it? Are you in? Well, then go, go, go.